Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today I'll be breaking down this 7-game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Thursday night. So, kind of going through an early look slate breakdown here, talking through who I like, who I don't like, helping you guys break down this slate. As an early look, obviously, with injury news, these kind of core plays guys have a lot of interest in will change. So, always stay up to date with the injury news. Hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get right into it. So, quick look at the spread and total for these games. Obviously, with it being so early, I'm recording this when the first 3 games of tonight's slate Wednesday night just started. A few of them are getting close to halftime, but there's still like 5 games left still to play tonight. A few of these teams are playing tonight, and they're going to be playing tomorrow, so back to back. Obviously, some blowout risk there for a few of these teams, but we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 7 games so far on the board. 76ers Pacers, 4.5 point spread, 237 game total. So pretty solid game total there. Sixers, obviously a fantastic matchup there going against the Pacers. Jazz Wizards, 7 point spread, 243.5 game total. Obviously two really solid teams to target for tomorrow's slate. Great game environment there. Two very bad teams. So a lot to like there. Wolves Nets, 4 point spread, 219 total. Celtics Heat, 6.5 point spread, 224.5 total. I think the Heat are playing tonight as well. So that game could get a little bit ugly with the blowout risk there if the Heat don't show up and they're a little bit tired. Nuggets Knicks, 2.5 point spread, 224.5 total. And then Kings Warriors, 2 point spread, 241.5 total. That should be a great game. Those games are always usually fast paced. At least they were last year. This year, the Warriors are very up and down. They're playing tonight. So obviously there's risk of maybe them resting guys tomorrow. So that's going to be chaos, but should be a good game environment to target. Hopping into this first game here, Utah versus Washington. I mean, Lauri's price just keeps getting cheaper. 8,000 for Lauri is just way too cheap here. I mean, in a close game, in a tight game, this dude's going to see close to, 35, 36, 37 minutes, maybe even more. He's going to shoot it 15 plus times as all the usage has double upside. Really just comes down to if he's hitting the shot. If he is, I mean, just way too cheap here. As you can see, averaging about 42 fantasy points per game. 8,000 for Lauri in this matchup here. He should be very popular, but for good reason. Same thing with Sexton. I mean, he's just continuing to be very, very efficient, very solid DFS wise. I mean, last night, 24 minutes, 9 to 12, 38 fantasy points. I mean, his efficiency is going to fall down at some point, but still, I mean, I don't hate it in this matchup. Once again, he looks very, very good. I think Clarkson would be a nice pivot play off of a chalky Sexton. The minutes have not been the best on him recently, but as you can see, he's massive ceiling if he just hits his shots. He's coming off the bench there as the scoring spark. So that's just the risk there with him. If he doesn't hit his shots, he's going to screw you. Collins I have a little bit of GPP interest in him. As you can see, he does have some upside, but the minutes have not been the best. But he's coming at a cheap price tag. And then they're just running out guys like Kessler, who's I guess a fine play. I don't love that. Fonte, who was a decent chalk that other game, put up 32. So if you think the streak's going to survive or last, where he's going, 6 of 9, 5 of 8 from 3, putting up, multiple rebounds, multiple assists, multiple steals. Sure, you could take a shot at him. I mean, it's a good game environment. I don't hate it, but at 4.1, it does feel like he's outperforming what he's pretty much done so far in his career. So I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Kante George down there. I mean, Olenek, Abaji, they're just running all those guys a ton of minutes, or excuse me, they're running a ton of guys split minutes. So it's really hard to love any of those value guys. But they're there. It's a good game environment, so it could just be a little bit of a boost to them. But I don't love diving down into those weeds yet. Moving on to Washington here, as I always say, Kuzma going to be the leader of this team. If the game stays close, it's most likely because Kuzma has a solid game there. Kind of been floating in between like high 30s to low 40s, mid 40s fantasy points. He can go for 50 plus if he's having a really good game there. A few almost triple doubles from him this season, so I think he's fine. Power forward center eligible, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, 7.9 for Kuzma is a pretty solid spot here. Same thing, Trey Jones, don't love the price tag, but as you can see, very up and down in terms of his box score. Tonight, I don't think he hit a shot so far in the first quarter. And yeah, all these guys are just fine secondary options. We know the upside there with Poole. We know the upside with Denny if he has that one random game where he goes for like a triple double, 10, 10, and 10. Gafford and Badley are going to split the center minutes. I don't think there's a need to really get to anyone on Washington unless you're really, really trying to get risky. And if you are, I'd just say go with a safe play of Kuzma. If you want to get riskier, maybe Tyus Jones or Poole. That's really it. There's just not a lot to like there for Washington, even in a good matchup. You just don't feel great about any of those guys. Moving on to Philadelphia here. Obviously, Embiid, I mean, we know what this man's doing. Coming off 105 fantasy points, 70 real life point performance. I mean, he gets Indiana. I mean, it's this dude's probably going to put up another 100 fantasy point game. Looks fantastic here. Really like Maxi. If you don't want to pay up for Embiid, Maxi's going to be your guy. I mean, look at the minutes, 42 minutes in back to back games. He's a second option. He's going to shoot the ball a ton, has double double upside. Two bad games after having, two 50 fantasy point games in a row. So we know the upside is there with him. I think he's a really, really strong pivot play off of Embiid if you don't want to pay up for Embiid. Harris is questionable. I would assume he's good to go. If not, maybe a little bit of value can open up, but nothing too crazy there. Melton's still out. Oubre would probably be that third guy I'd look to target if I wanted to get to him if there is no Harris. But obviously, if Harris is there, I think it's a fine contrarian play. And that really takes everyone else out of contention for me. Moving on to Indiana here. Howard's going to miss a few more games. So they did start Siakam, Turner, Hield, Nemhard, and Naismith in that last game there. If they do that again, which I'm assuming they will, I mean, Pascal is just a little bit too cheap here. Only played 33 minutes. Would have liked that number to go up a little bit more. I'm assuming it will. I mean, he's getting used to the offense. So it's still nice to see him play 30 minutes than 33. Went for a double-double there, 35 and a half. He had a really strong first half in there, and then the whole team kind of fell off in that second half against Denver, which makes sense. Very good team here. Now they're going to play Philadelphia. Obviously, a tough matchup for Miles Turner there. But yeah, really, really like Pascal here. Going to be super aggressive in this offense with no Halliburton. Turner's a very solid and strong GPP option at 6.3 if you think he stays out of foul trouble against Embiid, because we know the upside is there with him. But obviously, it's going to be hard with him trying to contain Embiid. That's why he's coming in a pretty cheap price tag. Hield, I think if he starts, I like him. But if he's coming off the bench, I think he's a risky play there, but still fine. McConnell's going to come off the bench, play all the backup point guard run. I don't mind if you want to get to him, a little bit of a revenge spot for him. Nemhard's going to get the start, 5.3K. Last year he flashed upside. Even this year at times he has, but I mean the past month, 2 months, it's been a real struggle for him to really do anything in terms of DFS output. Even with the starts, even with no Halliburton, I don't get it. But still, I mean, he's going to be starting, should play mid to high 20s minutes, possibly can break 30, 5.3K. I still think he's a solid play. Mathurin, kind of like a Hield play. I don't mind him. He's going to be kind of that aggressive scorer off the bench here, 5,000. They're going to need his points. If they're going to keep this game close, it's going to be because of Siakam having a really good game, and they're going to need a guy like, I would assume it's either going to be Buddy Hield or Mathurin to have really, really good games offensively to carry this team along with Siakam if they want to keep it close with Embiid and Maxey. I think Turner's one of those risky options, as I said, in GPPs, where he could have a big game, but obviously dealing with Embiid is a lot. So that's just the risk there. Don't have interest in anyone else on this team. Moving on to Minnesota versus Brooklyn here. Minnesota side, once again, Anthony Edwards, Karl Towns, way too cheap here at their price tags. Really, really like Anthony Edwards. Him and Towns are just shooting the ball terrible today. I think they were the second game to start tonight. I think Edwards was like 3 of 9 in the first quarter. Towns was like 0 of 5. So yeah, they got off to rough starts there. But yeah, way too cheap here even in this matchup against Brooklyn, who kind of play gross. Gobert's a fine secondary option. If Conley's out once again, we could definitely look to NAW as some value here. Not the best point per minute guy, especially when he gets to start. Most of the times he's been 15 fantasy points or less, and he's not coming in at a very cheap price tag. So he'd be a fine play there if there's no Conley. Now, if there's Conley, I'd really just stick to Towns and Edwards and maybe landing on Gobert if you're feeling a little bit riskier. Moving on to Brooklyn here. I mean, the offense and team just goes through Mikal Bridges, as you can see. Really good upside there. Been super aggressive. Don't mind if you land on him. Nice contrarian option. Claxton, they're going to need his size and height, so I do really like him here. If he can stay out of foul trouble, he has massive upside. So, I mean, they're going to need him to be out there the whole game because of Gobert and Cat. So, I really like him here in this matchup. They should use him a lot. And then off the bench, there'll be Cam Thomas there. If he hits his shots, he can extend it. If not, he'll see about, mid-teens to low 20s minutes. Cam Johnson's questionable. If he's out, maybe they do start Cam Thomas, which would, be very interesting. Would be a pretty solid play there at 5.6. But if Cam Johnson's good to go, I do think it's an interesting GPP option there. Scoring dependent, but if he can get hot from the field, easily can crush that price tag. Dinwiddie's fallen all the way down to 5.2K. Not really sure what's going on with this dude. As you can see, he had 3 straight games of 30 or more fantasy points, 5.5 that last game. Is this dude going to get caught, traded? Who knows? 5.2 for him, though, is very, very intriguing, even though he's been absolutely god-awful this season. So I'm intrigued, but I'm prepared for pain there. Dennis Smith Jr. kind of picking up a little bit more minutes with how bad Dinwiddie's been doing, but I don't think there's a need to force that. And then Lonnie, Royce, DFS, they're seeing like mid-teens minutes off the bench. Nothing too crazy there. They're just very, very risky dart throws. Moving on to Denver here versus the Knicks. Jokic, I mean, Jokic is Jokic. Really, really like him. If you feel fine with the value, Jokic is a really good spend up. Jamal Murray, kind of like that Maxi play. Probably a little bit safer than Maxi just because he's probably a little bit better rebounding and assists, but still, I mean, as I said that last slate, really liked Jokic, really liked Jamal Murray going against Indiana. And they both put up, Murray put up 51 and a half. Jokic put up, I think, like, what was it? Let's see here real fast. 69. I mean, put up a triple double. And now we get Embiid and Maxi playing them. I mean, as you can see, Indiana's a great team to target. So Murray and Jokic both look great. We know the upside there with them. MPJ, I think right now would probably be my favorite one to target on this team if I'm not going to get to Murray and Jokic just because he should play 30 plus minutes. If he hits his shots, he can easily go for 35 plus. But yeah, as you can see, this is the floor if he doesn't hit his shots, if he's not aggressive. And if it's a game where Jokic and Murray take over, he's not going to get a ton of upside. Aaron Gordon, he's just there. If you want to land on him and get different, sure. KCP, same thing as Aaron Gordon. I mean, there's just really no need to go out of your way to play any of those guys unless you land on them. On the Denver side, the Knicks side here, Brunson and Randall have been really, really strong, especially Brunson has been fantastic this season. Always going to be super low owned, but I mean, he's been great, fantastic there. Hartenstein going to be a ton of foul trouble risk here if he does play. If he doesn't, they did start Sims, who actually was very productive, which was very surprising. But going to be a tough matchup here for the bigs trying to guard Jokic. So expect to see a lot of Sims and a lot of Precious Achiuwa. If there is no Hartenstein. Now, if there's Hartenstein, I would assume they go with Precious, or excuse me, they go with Hartenstein, obviously, and then Precious would kind of get the backup run there. So we'll have to wait for that news there. A little bit of interest in those centers, but obviously a very tough matchup going against Jokic. Rest of the team here, the wings, I mean, OG's there. Once again, doesn't do a ton offensively because Randall and Brunson are going to lead the way. DiVincenzo's there as well. He's been better than Hart, and then Hart, he's there. I mean, I think they're fine, especially Hart if you want to land on him for value. I don't mind it. But yeah, they're there. Moving on to Boston here versus Miami. Obviously, this blowout risk. Miami is playing tonight. But Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, White, Holiday, they're all back. I mean, Holiday and White interest me just because they're pretty cheap at their price tags. But, I mean, we know the alpha is Tatum. Brown and Porzingis are kind of those secondary guys. White mixes in where there's nights where he's kind of that secondary guy along Tatum. But it's going to funnel through Tatum, and then it goes down to Brown, Porzingis, White, and then Holiday's a fourth option. So with that in mind, I don't love the price tags in any of them. I'd still think Tatum's the safest. But, yeah, I mean, going against Miami, I do like Brown. A little bit of a mismatch there. I mean, not really sure who's going to guard him because you're going to have someone, I would assume, Jimmy on Tatum, probably Martin on Brown, Bam on Porzingis, and then it's like who's going to guard White and Holiday. A little bit of a mismatch there for the Heat. So I do like these guards, but they're just strong secondary options for me. In terms of the bench, not much there to like. Moving on to Miami here. Obviously, very tough matchup they're playing tonight, and they do have Terry Rozier. So it'll be interesting to see how many minutes he does play alongside these guys. And with him here, it kind of does muddy the waters offensively. So it's obviously downside to Hero, Butler, and even Bam. So for right now, they're just more so secondary options, more so if you want to get contrarian. I'm just going to wait and see kind of what they do with the lineups, how many minutes, who's aggressive. I'm going to look through all that tonight and then kind of make more of an educated guess tomorrow. But yeah, right now more so just to stay away from me, especially with that back-to-back. I do think that there's some blowout risk there. Moving on to Sacramento versus Golden State. Sacramento versus Golden State. Sabonis, Fox. I mean, Sabonis, one of those guys who just keeps getting cheaper, even though he's massive upside. I mean, going against Golden State, absolutely love the spot here for Sabonis. So he looks like a very, very strong and good play. Same day, Fox, 9,000 for him. Both fantastic plays here. Fox has been a little bit inconsistent recently the past month, but still, we know the upside is absolutely amazing with both of them. Keegan Murray has been turning on a little bit recently, as you can see, the past like 7-8 games, 49, 40, 36, 32.5, 44, 28. So it's like he's still going to be aggressive. He's still going to be that third option. He should play mid-30s minutes, and he's shooting the ball close to 15 times a game, even alongside Sabonis and Fox. So I mean, I do have a lot of interest in him there at 6.1K, especially if you're not going to get to Fox or Sabonis. Good game environment here. Really like into him if you're not getting to one of those two. Monk, kind of the same thing. I'd say a little bit riskier just because the minutes aren't as safe and secure, but obviously he's probably a little bit better all around scorer compared to Keegan, even though Keegan's probably a better shooter. So that's just a risk there with Monk. If you want to, pivot off of a Keegan Murray who should draw some ownership, I'd say definitely go to Monk. Herder is the risky option compared to those two. As you can see, has upside if he does hit his shots, but that's the downside with him, right? Like he hasn't been able to hit his shots for the past year and a half. I don't want pain, especially if I go to Dinwiddie, which I might. So I think I'm going to stay away from Herder, but he's obviously a GPP option. Harrison Barnes, I do think is an interesting value. Obviously, had a pop-off game there. Kind of throw that out the window. But before that, I mean, he's a guy who could go out there and get you about 20-ish fantasy points, maybe a little bit more if he's scoring the ball well. But 4.2K for a guy who's starting, see mid-20s minutes, I don't mind him. And then Trey Lyles is pretty cheap for a guy who should see mid-teens minutes. Maybe there's, maybe it gets extended a little bit if he's hitting the shots, or if there's a little bit of some bonus foul trouble, you could definitely look to Trey Lyles there. Moving on to Golden State here. Golden State side, obviously they're playing tonight. We'll see how many minutes Draymond gets, and then we'll see if he is able to play tomorrow. So this, whole breakdown and lineup could be totally wrong just because we still have to wait for that news. But once again, Steph, Clay look really, really strong going against the Kings here. Pods, I'm not really sure if he started tonight. Still don't have that news yet. So we'll have to see what they do with the starting lineup there. But if, Draymond Green does play, 5.6 is definitely too cheap for him, especially if he's going to see close to 30 minutes, just with how involved he is with Steph and Clay. He does have that triple-double upside. So I think he's still going to be my favorite play alongside Steph. And then Clay's going to be that really strong secondary option. And if you're looking to get different, depending on how many minutes coming in pods, Sarge, even Wiggins play tonight, even Trace Jackson Davis, you could definitely get different with them. But once again, going to wait and see kind of what happens with that, rotation tonight. And then moving on to Chicago here versus the Lakers. On the Chicago side, tough matchup, obviously for Vooch, but still, I think he's a solid pivot play, or excuse me, not pivot play, but a solid contrarian option for the center range. But with the centers, I think there's a lot to like. I don't think there's a need to get to Vooch unless you want to get different. Kobe White with no Zach LaVine. He was fantastic for me last game. Almost went for a triple-double, 60 bomb there. But yeah, I mean, he has that massive upside, even playing alongside Vooch, even playing alongside DeRozan. I mean, Kobe White's going to be that kind of secondary, sometimes even first option for them, but he's going to be running point. So he has massive upside. I really like him there at 7.6. It's a very strong price tag for him. DeMar, I think it's a decent price tag. It's just his upside has been super limited this year. I mean, he's had, a couple random games where he's gone for like 50, but other than that, he's kind of been floating in the mid-high 30s. I don't love the price tag there for him at 7.4. More so get different options. So I'd rather stick with Kobe and Vooch once again. They're the safest, have the most upside. DeRozan's kind of that random pop-off guy you really hope needs to go off and do well. Otherwise, he's just going to be fine for you. I do have a lot of interest in Caruso, 5.1K. They should use him. He's been seeing mid-20s minutes, sneaking into the 30-minute range as well. Obviously not the best scorer, but I mean, we know what he can do defensively, and if he hits his shots, it's just a bonus. So I think he's a very strong play in the 5K range if you want to go down there. I do think I'd prefer him to Dinwiddie if you want to make that pivot there. I'm not saying Dinwiddie is a core play at all. He's a very terrible play, but interesting just because we know the upside there with Dinwiddie, right? Especially if he hits his shots, but I do think I'd rather get to Caruso over Dinwiddie if I'm going to go to that very low 5K guard range. Rest of the team there, I mean, Io's had a few games there. He's been actually playing solid minutes. Should continue to see solid minutes with no Zach. So 4.6 if you did want to take a shot on him. I want to hate it. Carter is not going to see enough run there. And then Drummond, obviously his minutes have gone down with the Vooch back. Don't think there's a need to take a shot on him. And obviously on the Lakers side, good matchup here against the Bulls. Anthony Davis is really, really strong center option. I expect a lot of LeBron to be back. And at 9.2K for LeBron, it's just too cheap here versus the Bulls. He always has really good games against the Bulls. So really like LeBron here at the spot. And then with LeBron back, obviously it does kind of take the interest out of Reeves and Russell for me, even though Russell's been fantastic the past few games. I don't trust it, especially with how many times he's been shooting. I know it's been working the past few games, but I fully expect LeBron and AD to kind of take over. Russ to be that third option. And with that in mind at 7,000, I think it's just a fine play. Same thing with Reeves. I think I'd rather get to Reeves than Russell just because he's cheaper. And we know the upside that is still strong with him, even though the alphas are LeBron and AD. I think it's going to go 80 LeBron, kind of tied in terms of upside usage. And I do think Reeves is probably a better play than Russell tomorrow, just because of the price tag difference. And I'd say he's got a little bit of a safer floor overall, even though Russell's been outperforming in the past like week or two. In terms of value, I don't think there's a need to get to any of the value. The run out Rui, Vanderbilt, kind of low teens to a little bit of a low, or excuse mid teens to low 20s minutes, but nothing too crazy there. Prince is always an option if you think he hits a couple threes. Otherwise, pretty risky at that price tag. So yeah, that is the breakdown for tomorrow night, Thursday night. I hope you guys liked the video. Hit that like button and subscribe. Obviously, there's a lot to like here. A lot of guys do feel really cheap here. If I had to do like an early look core play based on the news we have so far, really, really like LeBron, Siakam. I'm going to take Claxton out for now. And I'm going to do that. So right now, I think this is what I'm kind of leaning towards. Edwards, LeBron, Pascal, and Keegan. But I really, really like Kobe there. I do really, really like trying to get to, at least one guy in that Indiana-Philadelphia game there. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's the video. I hope you guys like it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.